What's up, everybody? Had a great opportunity this week to speak with Mark and somebody that was doing something completely relevant to what he studied for, per se, in college, but it really just comes back and shows you how powerful sports are because it wasn't what he loved. It wasn't what was fun, enjoyable for him. And sports helped bring him back to his path of where he wanted to be and where he's at now. And he's able to work for a professional organization in sports and he's loving it. And it just kind of his story draws the full loop connection from being a little kid and playing sports, playing soccer, to now being able to work for an MLS club. So, really cool story. Hope you guys enjoy. Appreciate all the support. Please subscribe to our YouTube page, follow us on Spotify, subscribe, give us some likes, give us some love, whatever you can do for us, help this grow. Share it with your friends or neighbors, anyone. And without further ado, everybody, here's Mark. All right, welcome everybody back out to another episode here on Sojo. Got a sweet guest with us today, Mark over here. Appreciate the time, Mark.
Thanks, Cooper. Happy to be here.
Yeah, happy to have you. Never would have thought, meeting over there in Seattle that it would have led to this, but here we are. So hopefully we'll have a good conversation on our hands today.
Absolutely. I'm glad we could reconnect.
Yeah, this is cool. This is great. So I know you're over there in Kansas, but getting your whole sports journey started kind of to where you are now, where did it all begin? Where's home for you?
Yeah, well, home for me is in Atlanta. I was born there, grew up there, went to the same school for a long time, actually, my whole life. So I went to the same school there in Atlanta until I went to college. But I, grew up playing soccer since I was about 8 years old, I think, and stuck with that through middle school, through high school. Found myself on a club team. We weren't very good, but it helped with my development a little bit, and then started taking it a little bit more seriously in high school until I went to college and didn't really play it at a serious level in college. Part of me wishes that I had, but was on the club team where I went to school, and then sort of found myself in a career after that. But it was a bit of a windy road to get there, actually. Yeah. I've really only been working in the sports industry for about 2 years, and I'm 27. So had to kind of climb the hill, but very happy to be in the industry now.
No, that's cool. That's cool. So you said growing up playing soccer. So did you come from a soccer family? Your parents, anyone all around you play soccer, or kind of what was the tie-in for soccer being the sport?
It's funny. That's a good question. I really think I was just one of the people that just was put in it, like when I was young, as as we do in America. I feel like soccer is the sport that you start with, and it's often not the sport that people finish with, right?
It's fair.
Yeah, I feel like most of my friends slid into baseball or basketball or football. But when I started playing, I was a very, very shy kid. I remember like my first memories of soccer are actually running off the field and running over to my mom and crying and hugging her at the knees because I was so afraid that everybody was watching me and that I would make a mistake or I wasn't a good player or whatever. But she made me tough it out, and I stuck with it for the next few years and really fell in love with it. Probably when I hit middle school and my friends started playing, we play pickup in the summers, we play on the weekends. It was just a great way for us to come together and sort of build some community around it, something that we all had in common. So that's kind of where it started for me, honestly. Looking back, it's amazing that I stuck with it, because if you had looked at me when I was 7, 8 years old, you'd say, this kid is hopeless.
To your point, that is, I think soccer is something that a lot of kids probably do start with, as, you just roll the ball out there and you start walking and kicking it around. So, I mean, it makes sense. It's easy. So did they keep you in it then? Like you said, your mom kind of made you tough it out. Did she make you kind of go for a few years before, to your point, in middle school, you're like, I actually like this?
Yeah, she did. She really did. I remember having several conversations with her, and my dad even put me into baseball after that to see if it was better. But I ended up being the pitcher on the team, which was even
Yeah.
harder for me because that's really where all the attention is, you know?
Yep.
So
Yep.
then I ended up leaving baseball and coming back to soccer
Yeah.
because it felt more familiar to me. And yeah, she made sure I played it every year. And then like I said, I grew into it and was able to kind of make it my own and felt more comfortable. And then that's really where I kind of fell in love with it. So I give a lot
Yeah.
of credit to her, honestly. And like we were talking about at the beginning, it's funny how sometimes things in life, you know, like when we met, it was fantastic. And then we all left Seattle and then here we are again. It's like you come back to these things in your life that you don't expect to return. And sometimes they can become something really meaningful. So that's kind of what soccer was for me.
No, I love that. And I think that's huge and why this is kind of important, why I just love talking to different people and their whole journeys is because it's fun when everybody gets to reflect back and you look to where you are now and kind of what the starting point was. Like imagine if you just stopped playing soccer after, you did it for 2 years and maybe you did go into baseball
Yeah.
and or did something different like tennis and would that have totally altered your path that you're on now, where you're at now, and how that changes all with that too. So sports really does put you on a cool journey and a good place. And so I mean that's why we're here. That's why we're discussing it.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
to that though, do you feel? So you said your mom pushed it through. Do you feel like if you would have quit soccer, your parents would have made you do some type of sport? Do you feel like that was kind of the vibe from your parents? Like, hey, not soccer, baseball. If not that, like basketball, like something. Was that kind
Yeah.
of the vibe your parents gave?
Yeah, I don't think I ever really had a choice. I might have had the illusion of choice, but I think they were going to put me in something no matter what, and I'm grateful for that. Sort of learning that stick to itness has definitely helped me a lot in life, and to do that at a young age was pretty impactful for me. So, you know, if it wasn't going to be soccer, it was going to be baseball. If it wasn't baseball, it was going to be piano. I was going to be doing something on the weekends. So, yeah. I'm glad it was soccer though.
Yeah, I'm glad it was soccer too. I've done the piano route. I mean,
Yep.
props to everybody out there that plays piano. That's just, I got a lot of respect. I got a lot of respect for it. Okay, so playing soccer, you said, so you fell in love with it more in middle school, getting to play it, doing that with your buddies and stuff. And then you started playing in high school. Did you play club between that too as well? You said you did play on a club team, but it was just so-so.
Yeah, I played on a club team, and again, it was kind of a way to fill the weekend. I had some friends that were on much better club teams than I was. There's at least in Atlanta, there's like it's called like classic, and so you have like
Hmm.
classic 1 through 5, one being the best, five being essentially recreational soccer. And then once you elevate from classic one, you get into like the regional and academy leagues, and then that's where you're going to find, you know, your D1 players, those that have dreams of going pro, all of that. I
Yeah,
started in Classic 5 for a long time. So we called it club soccer, competitive soccer,
yeah,
but it wasn't very serious. And then
gotcha.
once I sort of realized that I was enjoying it and again, took it with a little more focus and realized I had a little bit of aptitude for it, I switched teams to a Classic 3 team. And then we ended up getting to Classic 1, I think, by the time I was a senior.
Yeah,
So that's kind of like when I really started to play with and against my friends. And I
yeah,
remember at one point, my club team was playing against one of my good friends' club teams for the first time ever because we were always in a lower classic. We ended up beating them, and it was like a really big deal to me. My friend did not
yeah.
want to talk about it because it was very embarrassing for him. But I remember when I beat him that weekend, and we ended up winning the tournament. I was like, oh my gosh, you know, like I can actually play this competitively and have a good time and find reward in it. I think I discovered that a little bit too late. Part of me wishes I had taken it seriously so I could have played at some level in college.
Yeah,
But that was a very exciting moment for me, and I think kind of helped solidify my commitment to the game and see it from more of a 30,000 foot view of what it could be other than just a fun time on the weekend.
yeah. No, that makes sense. And it's cool to hear kind of your story from that too, because just the last episode we talked to Courtney, who's playing professionally in the women's league, and seeing how she played club at just like a really young age, and she's
Yeah.
traveling all over the country. Like to your point, that's that above that one where you hit the regionals and all that, and it's a different ball game for sure.
It's legit. I listened to that episode and I was impressed. I remember her talking about, if you want to take it seriously, you've got to really commit to it.
Hmm.
Like you have to travel on the weekends. You have to go to the other states. Even your parents have to commit to it to do
Oh
that
yeah.
travel time for you and be the team mom and all of that. So those that have elevated to that level and played in college, I have so much respect for because it is a big commitment. But it's really, really cool.
Yeah, no, it definitely is. And yeah, it's total buy-in from your parents. Do you think your parents
Yeah.
would have bought in? Would they be like, "Yeah, let's travel all over," or do you think they were like, this is probably good just right here in Atlanta?"
I think they were happy with where we were. I think if I had pushed them like they pushed me, my parents are I'm lucky to have such wonderful parents. I think they would have supported whatever it took. But
Yeah,
I didn't have my own buy-in at that point. So maybe I spared them a few hours on the weekend. It's the most I could give back to them.
that's fair. That's fair. And so, do you have any siblings? Anyone else that played soccer after or before you?
I've got an older brother. He's 3 years older than me. He kind of went in and out of sports growing up. He had the full sort of cornucopia of it all. I think he started with baseball and soccer like me, and then he shifted into lacrosse, football. He even played water polo at one point. Took tennis pretty seriously. So, yeah, he had the full gambit.
Yeah,
And I just was sort of myopic in my approach and wasn't as adventurous as he was, for better or
yeah.
worse.
Do you think seeing him go and play all the different sports was that kind of made you want to focus more on just soccer? Or do you think, did you ever have an inkling to kind of be like, hey, I want to do the same thing as him?
I mean, I looked up to him. Like I said, he was my older brother, my only
Hmm.
sibling, and I remember throwing the lacrosse ball with our new sticks that we bought from like Academy Sports in the backyard, and that being a very cool moment. And I remember slipping into tennis one summer where he was taking it seriously and competitively, and we would sort of train at the local facility in the neighborhood. And there were a few moments where I was enticed to try something else, but I think I had felt like I put so much sunk cost into soccer that I to pull out would have been kind of like a disservice to my younger self, and felt like I needed to keep with it to grow at least the little bit that I had.
Yeah. No, it makes sense. And it's a different world with soccer too. And I think that was the cool thing talking to Courtney here and like the leagues here with you even is it seems like it starts so young and then the really good players are already in academies and stuff and they're really not playing for their high schools. And it's totally different from football where it is driven all through the high school. Like that's the normal pipeline. That's where you're playing, you're there doing that, but it's totally different. And so it feels like you have to have an early buy-in versus
Yeah,
some kids can start playing football later and still be fine by the time they're in high school and playing it. So I get that. I mean, it's definitely a hard switch to just pick up tennis and start going after that and seeing how that is. So
yeah.
I
You
got
switch
you.
from your feet to your hands, which is
Yeah.
uncomfortable for any soccer player.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, maybe if they would have had, pickleball back in the day, then it would have been. He
Hey,
could
I'm
have
a
done that.
huge pickleball guy. I am an advocate for pickleball. That is a really really fun sport. I play it all
Fun.
the time.
Absolutely. I love it. And yeah. Don't get me wrong. I love pickleball, but I think it's just because it's so much easier to pick up than like tennis or ping pong. Like never really got into either of those, but pickleball, love it. Huge
Yeah,
advocate, like you said.
it's a good happy medium between the both, I feel like.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So going into college, you said so you played it sounds like you played on a club team in college. So where'd you go to school?
I went to a small school in North Carolina called Wake Forest, and they had a very good soccer team. Actually, I think they were like a top 10 program while I was there. They even made it to the national championship when I was a freshman. So I was not even touching that team. I was, nowhere close to even thinking about that. But there was a club team that was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fraternity guys that just liked to get together and play. We would do some traveling. I remember playing against High Point and a few other local schools. But um, yeah, I mean, club soccer is in college is again a good way I feel like to build that community when you're at a new
Hmm.
school and you're trying to meet people. soccer is a great avenue to do that. So that's kind of where my pursuit was, at least in college.
Very cool. So playing and doing that in college, did you always have a mindset like, hey, I want to do something sports related, later on in life, or what were you studying? Like, what was the original path?
Yeah, to be honest, like soccer was my outlet on the club side. And other than that,
Mhm.
I hadn't considered it much more or any other avenue in the sports industry. I had no idea what I wanted to do in college, but I remember thinking about what I wanted to study and was thinking, well, I could just go the business route, go to business school, major in enterprise management or something like that, something that would give me some good scope as I went into the working world and would hopefully open up some general opportunities to me where I could maybe narrow down from there. And then I took accounting and that all fell apart. And I realized that I was not built for it. I did not have a very math brain. That was a real struggle for me. So I said, all right, enough of the business school. Let's do something that I feel like I'm a little more passionate about, maybe a little better at. And I ended up sort of falling into English, which was one of my favorite subjects in high school. I felt like the creative liberty within that major and just how dynamic it was with the conversations we would have in class, reading really interesting content and books. And my favorite thing about studying that was it felt like nothing was off limits in the classroom. You could just talk about wherever you wanted to take a conversation, anything that the content was providing was, up to expand upon and have an opinion on. And the professors were so encouraging of just building out. I keep coming back to this idea of community, but community in the classroom is something I was so drawn to. Those class sizes were about 15 to 20 people. So that felt very comfortable. And I took one or two classes and ended up sticking with it, majored
Hmm.
in that, and then minored in writing, kind of as a way to support that major as well. So again, nothing really tailored to the sports world,
Yeah.
but just something where I kind of felt like I was passionate about it and enjoyed it and wanted to pursue it.
No, I mean, that makes sense. And I can relate. I would totally shake your hand right now if we were a person with the accounting. I did the same thing, realized, hey, this is maybe not the not the route for me. Um, Maybe if I talk to my brother-in-law, he's a big accountant. He's got his degrees and everything and then does that. Maybe he should have just tutored me and I would have stuck through it, but I
Yeah,
like where
that's
it ended up.
impressive.
Um, so Wake Forest though, I mean, that's a getting into English and stuff. I know Wake Forest is a good school. The Demon Deacons. I mean, that's a lot of fun out there. Everything you're doing. So going into English, writing, doing all this. I'm assuming after graduation you were going full force into that. So where was the next step after college?
Yeah, I thought about it when I would come back home and my parents' friends would, come over to the house for dinner, a glass of wine or something. They would always say, "Oh my gosh, you're studying English. Are you going to be a teacher or a lawyer?" And I said, "I don't know. I don't think I'm going to be either. I'm not
Yeah.
sure yet." And for a while, I thought about getting into journalism, actually, but the path there seemed somewhat limited just with the state of that industry in the world. And so I decided I need to buy myself some more time, and I ended up working for the university in an administrative position for a year after through a fellowship
Nice.
opportunity. And then when that year expired, I kind of had to come back and return to the question of what do I want to do? What do I want to be in life?
Yeah.
And I found myself very influenced by the people around me and the people I was graduating with, my friends from home. They had taken that original routes, kind of the business routes. They were going to consulting firms in Atlanta. They were becoming lawyers in DC, et cetera. Kind of these high profile positions. And I was feeling a little bit left behind. And I remember thinking, okay, well, let me just go explore something that I feel like I need to do. And that was kind of just, for me, how I would describe it was I need to go into the corporate world and see what it looks like to work a 9 to 5 in an office. It's similar to what my friends are doing. So after that fellowship, I applied to work at a research firm where we were hiring what we called industry experts to actually consult with the clients of that company. And that was a really interesting job because those projects could cover anything under the sun. I remember my first project was on trying to hire, recruit an expert that could consult on aircraft arresting systems, which are like the cables that snatch onto planes, like fighter planes, when they land on an aircraft. And
Yeah.
I was thinking, I am so out of my depth here. I don't know anything about this. I don't know how I'm going to find this guy. But I learned a lot in that job, kind of like the resourcefulness it needs to go out and find a lead and bring him in to, help you out and help your company. So I did that for about a year. And like I said, I learned a lot. But at the end, the sort of corporate landscape ended up being a little soul crushing for me. My English major self wanted something that was a little bit more playful and exciting, I think. And so I took another look in the mirror and thought back to what mattered to me. And I came back to soccer, man. Like, that's what it was. I thought about what I was still passionate about, what I found a lot of joy in. And at a very base level, it was just that sport. And so I was doom scrolling on LinkedIn looking for other jobs. And one of my friends from home had posted up an internship in Atlanta to work with Atlanta United and the Falcons out of Mercedes Benz. And
Yeah.
I just texted him. I hadn't talked to him in years. And I said, hey, I'm interested in learning a little bit more about this position. I know it's just a 6-month internship. So in some ways it felt like a big step back, but he said, I think you should apply. It was in the corporate partnerships world. And I applied, ended up getting the job, and ended up taking an internship at 25, I think, to pursue, something in that realm. And I ended up really, really enjoying it. And just decided that, okay, this is kind of where I'm going to put my stake in the ground and try to work for an MLS club. That was my dream. And that season was split 50% between the Falcons and the MLS. Really cool to learn from both sides. Obviously, the NFL is more of a traditional industry, sort of a more devoted fan base, I would say. I think the MLS is a little more entrepreneurial. It's a little more up and coming. And I realized that I loved the MLS side, not just because of soccer, but because of the growth potential in the US. And then so I started applying for jobs and ended up landing at Sporting Kansas City full time. So that was kind of that spiraling up and down
Yeah.
trajectory to get to where I am at this moment.
Yeah. No, and I love what you did reflecting on at the end of the day, it was just what do I love? What am I passionate about? Like what, brings me joy to the point. English, even the creativity, the ability to do different things, it just wasn't cohesive in that business world. And so then going back and just kind of asking yourself. But that ties back to our earlier point of playing soccer as a little kid. Like that became something that was instilled in you. Like it was just fun, which is what sports at the end of the day should be. Win or lose, obviously everybody wants to win. I get it.
Right.
You want the trophy, you want the rings. Like I get it. I'm very competitive, but at the end of the day, that aspect of having fun needs to be tied to sports. Otherwise, it's just another job. It's not enjoyable. You're not having fun. Like you wouldn't keep doing it in college at a club level if it wasn't fun, right? Hey, you're not
Yeah.
just going to go out on the weekends while you're studying, taking all your exams and stuff to go play soccer if it's not something that's enjoyable, if it's not a stress reliever, if it's not. So it's cool. Cool to see how you got tied there and got to work for two different programs. I think that's super unique, though. I mean, you got to see the NFL side, the MLS side, and kind of pit those two against each other. So, in doing that, what was your first kind of I guess what was your first thoughts of the sports world once you took that step into it? What was your original like, whoa, this is what it's like?
Oh man, it was, yeah. Wow. That's a great question. It was energizing in a way. Like there was a freshness about it that was really sort of like appetizing, I guess you could say, in a way, especially coming from that corporate landscape. I
Yeah.
remember when I was working at Mercedes-Benz Stadium, I would always take a moment in the morning to walk along like the sideline of the field because you could just look up at the stadium and see the scale of it, and it was like being in the Coliseum or something. Like it was so cool. And I think for me, in those moments, I felt inspired because this was a place where people would come to experience joy, no matter what day of the week it was, no matter what was going on. That's kind of the power of sports, at least in the way that I see it. Like it is a rally point for everybody to come together and experience something mutually and root for the same thing. and that feels somewhat rare. I feel like you know, the Olympics are going on right now in Paris, and
Yeah, yeah.
everybody's talking about it. You know, it comes around every 4 years. It's not really on people's radar until it swings back around, but it's a conversation point. It's something for people to talk about and relate to. And that's just sport in my mind. I think soccer epitomizes it the most for me. But yeah, man, I felt energized. I wanted to contribute to it. And like I said, I think Major League Soccer has so much potential in front of it. If you look at the other leagues around the world, they are sort of the dominant sport in each country. If you look at the Premier League, I don't know if you follow the Premier League, Cooper?
Yeah, 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 yeah. Still, I follow a wide array of sports. So yeah, I follow Premier League, the Champions League when it gets to the high level. Yeah.
Yeah. Champions League is great. It's if you I look at the Premier League and it's like people are so passionate about their teams. Like the rivalry between Arsenal and Tottenham is like just mind blowing. I mean, you could look at rivalries in America and maybe in the NFL they're similar, but the way that people will attach their identities to a soccer club is is almost religious because it's like you're attaching yourself to something greater than yourself. And there's so much strength and importance in that in society. And I want to see the MLS grow into that and be a top three league in America and have people feel that passion and that inspiration with the club in their city. And so I saw that when I was in Atlanta. Atlanta United is a newer club, but they found a lot of success in the beginning. And for anybody that's familiar with the MLS, they'll know how much of a grip that Atlanta United had on the city. It might be because Atlanta sports are not always like the most inspiring. We've had the Braves recently; they won a championship. That was exciting, but the Falcons lost that Super Bowl to the Patriots in 2016, I think, and that kind of epitomized Atlanta sports for a lot of those people. So to have something new and fresh come in like Atlanta United really lifted up the city and reminded me of the power of sport and soccer specifically.
Yeah, no, I think that's cool, and yeah, I love the fans in soccer. I always tell people are so different
Yeah,
because I gotta spend my time living in Latin America and seeing the culture there, and it's the same. The tie into soccer is everything, because here in the United States, sports become so there's so many sports. There's so many options where it's split. Like your best athletes aren't all playing soccer because they're playing basketball, they're playing baseball, they're playing football, they're doing track, they're doing so many different things. But when you get to these other countries, it's like those are their best athletes and they're playing soccer for the national team, for those local teams, or then they're going over to Europe and playing on those. And so it was like a prestigious thing. You look at national team rosters and you see all these guys playing in Europe for all the major teams over there, and you're like, oh, this is a good team. But then still at their national level, they're very excited about all the things that are going on there. Like they have the different tiers too, and they all play for like the championship of that country. And
yep,
so you have all the different rounds there, preliminary rounds, and you have like a third tier team ends up going and making it to the top and they can win it all, and it's crazy and everybody's so excited, the whole community's tied in. That's the coolest part is it's so community tied in. And I think the only thing that kind of replicates that in the states that I've seen is like going to football games in small towns.
mm,
They seem to get some big tie in, and then football in Texas is
yeah,
definitely different, Phil.
that's where my mind
um,
went.
but they got good tie in there as well. Don't get me wrong, $1 million stadiums in high school. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of backing and support there. But it's. I mean, you're seeing these small communities in just infatuated with their teams. They scream their teams, and I'd walk through areas where it's just like, hey, this is this team, and you know it because it's graffiti everywhere of this
Yep.
team. This team's over here. That this is our team. This is our community. We accept them. Like if you're somebody else, we don't want you
Yeah,
over
we
here.
don't want you
It
here.
it's huge, and it's crazy just to see that total buy-in to your point. And everybody, I mean, you're talking from a young youth, they're playing soccer, but then you're seeing grandpas and stuff still out there on the field playing soccer with kids, and like they're still getting after it. Like they're so bought in from like birth till the end. So to see something like that in the States would be absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, I saw
Yeah.
people play, yeah, all the time.
Absolutely, and it's kind of been it's sort of like a ritual. I feel like in other countries because it's what you do after school, and it's what you
Yeah,
do every Sunday is you play in your league, and then you go for a pint afterwards, right? It's like
yeah.
it's on its own schedule, and it's something that's just sort of expected. And I don't know if we have that here yet in the same capacity, but I see it as a beautiful thing. And you mentioned the family side, elderly people playing, the kids
Oh yeah.
playing. They call it the beautiful game, but they call it the poor man's game too, because all you
Yep.
need is two sticks and a ball, and you can play as much soccer as you want.
Oh, and I've seen it. I've seen kids and they literally a can for their goalposts, and then
Yeah.
they have a plastic ball that they use so they can play it in the
Yeah.
street, so it doesn't all get torn up. And they play with that, and they're just all over playing to anybody. It doesn't matter. So it's funny because it is the poor man's sport, but it is kind of fun because it's a sport that everybody can play. And
Yep.
so I think it gets some bad rep, especially in the States for it because of the infatuation with football. Like I love football, I get it, but the when you watch really good soccer, like it's pretty. Like it really is so different from even what you see here in the US. Like we're very aggressive and physical, and it's not, but when you watch some of these other countries, like the passes, the play, like it's so pretty. I got yelled at so many times when I tried to play pickup games with locals and stuff because they're like, "Man, you're too aggressive. Like that's not how you play." They're yelling at me, cussing me out, and I'm like, "Hey, man, I'm just." They're like, you just run." Like that's not it. You gotta. I was
The
getting chewed
Forrest
up
Gump. You
all the
just go,
time.
okay.
Man, I was like, shoot,
Yeah.
my bad, my bad. So no, it was incredible just to see, and I even got to play with a guy that played professionally over in Uruguay, and he was the goalkeeper. And I'll never, this is like burned in my brain to understand just how I thought I was decent at soccer. This put me in my place. He was playing the goalie. I remember a kid shot it on him and he saved it. And then he rolled it to himself and he went all the way down the field and scored a goal and then walked back to play goalie again. And
Wow.
that's not, it's just like, it's another level here. And there were other guys there too that we were playing with, and they all played in like high school and they played in club teams of different things. And so they thought they were good. And then you watch this guy just single
Yeah.
handedly like dribble through everybody, score a goal, walk back.
No
And I was
problem.
just like, man, this soccer thing is different down here. And it really is. It really is. So that's cool to see that that's what you want to see in the States too, because it's definitely like I love seeing that. And just to tie into your point, like everybody down there was so in love with the sport and it brought them so much happiness. And it's crazy. You could talk to so many locals and they'll give you like the breakdown of their history based on their soccer. Like
Oh
the
yeah.
soccer was like the breakdown of, oh man, back in the day, the great and this. And it was so
Right.
funny. Like the culture is tied to like the soccer and how things were at that time period. It's like, how was soccer at that time period too? Like it's all intertwined. So it was really cool to see. Um, just how that all intermingles and stuff. I think the only thing that I have against, I'm put it out there, it's the only thing I have against soccer in
Let's
Europe
do
and
it.
soccer in South America. Man, I love how much the fans love it, but it's like too much though, at a point, at a
They've
level.
gone too far.
Because I mean, you look at the stadiums though, they're building up, they have fences built up to separate fans. Because, for example, you go to an NFL game and you can go sit, you can be a Raiders fan at a Broncos game and you're gonna get booed at and stuff, but you're not necessarily gonna get beat or need like a separate section. But that's soccer. Like you watch
Yeah.
Ajax over there in Europe or something, like they've got to have them blocked out. Or you watch. Did you watch any of the Copa America
Oh
when that
yeah,
was
a lot
here?
of it. Yeah.
Okay, so their final game over there that they had to delay the start of it and everything because people are jumping over the fences. Like it's a mess, and that's the aspect that I'm like, that's the crazy aspect of it. Like there's the beautiful part of like the love and the the family aspect that sports can build, the community, the uplifting, the stories. Like you can find yourself, you can not have a community and find community within sports, within those teams. Like you can go to a bar that's all, fans of Atlanta and go there and hang out and have a good time, get to know people. But it's that other aspect of like the crazy fans. It's like too much where you like,
Yeah,
so, but
yeah.
that's all I have against it. That's it.
They no man, I'm actually with you. I mean, everything in moderation, right? Like,
Right.
hopefully, if we get to the level of where it is really embedded and it is competing with the NBA and NFL, whatever. Hopefully, we have those systems in place where we can, you know, I don't want to be tolerant of hooliganism. I think that's what they call
Yeah.
it in England, at
Yeah.
least, because people do become intoxicated by their passion, and that's great up to a certain point. But yeah, if it goes overboard, then that's kind of doing a disservice to the game and what it stands for. So as we grow the MLS, yeah, we're going to keep our eye out. But I think we have
I'm
a
keeping you
long
in
ways to
check.
go.
I'm
Yeah,
keeping you in
keep it in
check. I'm gonna
check.
call you up. I'll be like, "Hey, Mark, I saw some
Yeah.
stuff at the game last night.
Did you hear
Fireworks
what went on
thrown
at
on the
Hard Rock?
field.
Yeah, yeah. You
It
can
gets
hold me
crazy."
accountable. I'll do my best.
So now over there, living in Kansas City, um, how's it been? Like stepping into the world? Because I know you said you were an intern in an Atlanta United, but now you're in a full-time role over there with Kansas City. How is that?
It's good, man. It's good. There's a lot of passion for this club in the city. We are called the soccer capital of America, which is cool.
Yeah.
We I think we trademarked that legally last
Oh.
year, so we're really leaning into it as we approach the World Cup in 2 years. But it's great, man. I mean, look, this city it's a beautiful city. Coming from Atlanta, it has a very local feel to it. I've been here
Mhm.
for 2 years next week, actually. So just coming up on 2 years, and I recognize a lot of people that I've never even met. Like it just has that kind of small town but big city feel, and I really appreciate that. What I was going to say is like we have the Chiefs here, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I mean, they're a dynasty at this point, right? There's conversations around whether Patrick Mahomes is the greatest of all time. Travis Kelsey's dating Taylor Swift. Like, there's a lot of focus on the Chiefs in this city.
Yeah.
So, again, kind of comparing and contrasting the MLS to the NFL, the question is, how do we still compete in a market that is flooded with red? And that's something that we're figuring out. I think hopefully we can leverage the World Cup to help us tell our story and what we want to do. There's great tournaments in the MLS, like the Leagues Cup and the US Open Cup that we're participating in now. So there's a lot of soccer to be played and enjoyed. I should also give a
Mhm.
shout out to the KC Current, who are on the north side of the city. They're like the best team in the league right now. Kansas City is just a very, very sports centric city. So
Yeah.
we're always competing against each other, but also with each other. And that's been very cool to experience in a small town like this.
And I actually was going to ask you about that. How is, Kansas City, you're growing with all these sports teams, to your point, the current, and obviously the Chiefs are having their own dynasty run and everything that they've done. So how do you carve out your own little niche market and still get fans excited and still bought into your team and like, hey, we got the Chiefs, but we also have soccer here and we want that same excitement, that same energy over here supporting this team as well so they can, hopefully produce and do the same thing that the Chiefs are doing.
Yeah, that is a really, really good question. I think we're in a moment of figuring that out as a club, but I think going back generally to just the power of sports, one of the coolest thing is you represent the identity of a city. And so we are a soccer team and they are a football team, but we are also Kansas City, just like the Chiefs are. And you can come and you can enjoy the Chiefs on a Monday night, and then you can also come and enjoy soccer on a Saturday night. So again, it seems like we keep returning to this theme, but how do you do it together in community? And
Yeah.
sometimes there's a sense of, well, there are city rivals. We have the Royals as well. Obviously, we're competing for business and how people spend their money on tickets against the Current and the Chiefs and the Royals and the Mavericks, which are a hockey team. But I think there's room for everybody. Um, why don't you don't have to be a season ticket holder, but you can come and enjoy a current game and then come and enjoy a sporting game and just revel in, the sports identity of Kansas City, which is so strong. And then everybody has their moment too, so the Chiefs are competing for their third Super Bowl this year. I'm going to watch those games. I'm going to go to the ones that I can. I'm going to enjoy it. And then when the World Cup comes around, maybe it's our turn to share some of the spotlight and see how we can grow the love for soccer there. And then maybe in a year after that, it'll be the Royals in the World Series. So how do you do it together and expand on each team simultaneously? I see it as not so much a zero sum game, but in the sense of togetherness.
Yeah. No, I think that's a good point to and a great way to view it. With that, so do you work a lot with the current as well? I know it seems like over in Utah, RSL and the Royals, they're obviously they share the same stadium, a lot of the same facilities, and there's a lot of crossover there with marketing, different teams, tickets, different things. Is that something that you guys do as well?
Yeah, we used to lease our stadium to the Current. I should have said before they're
Mm.
the women's premier soccer team in Kansas City. So we would share a stadium up until this year, and they actually built their own stadium in the River Market, which is a
Oh,
neighborhood on
nice.
the north side of the city. It's the only women's built soccer stadium in the entire world, so it's very historic in that sense. And
Yeah.
we're very proud of that as Kansas citizens. And I go to games all the time. They're fantastic. Other than that, we don't work with them so much in a business capacity, but
Yeah.
we do share key learnings together. Sustainability is a big thing in both of our venues for both us and the Current. And so even next week, I'm actually going to a Current game to meet with some of their operational staff to see how they are basically tracking towards zero waste, which is kind of like a big sustainability thing for sports stadiums in America, is how do we operate such a large venue without producing any waste? And they are very good at that. They kind of have their philosophy down. So we're going to go over there and learn to see how we can do it at our stadium too. So we work together in that kind of sense, which is a lot of fun, and hopefully impactful for us and for our fans too.
Yeah, I had to Google it because I didn't even know that they did build their own stadium, and that thing looks really cool. That's a
It's awesome. It's
that's a
right on the
sweet
river.
looking stadium. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
a sweet spot. View, like that's a really cool. Wow, that is awesome. That's great that they have backing that would do that. That's really cool.
Yeah, yeah,
Wow.
it's awesome. I think they're going to host the NWSL Championship there this year too. So if you find yourself in Kansas City, let me know. We'll link up and go to a
Shoot.
game.
I might need to find myself in Kansas City at this point. Geez, that'd be fun. That would be cool. Um, with that, and I know you're talking about zero waste and different things. So what exactly is your role over there for sporting?
Yeah, I'm an account manager on the partnership marketing team. So I work with our corporate clients who do marketing basically through the club. And
Yeah.
I manage a list of about 13 corporate companies, I think. But then I'm also co-lead of what we call Sporting Sustainability, which is our sustainability platform at the club. Our focus right now is around zero waste, like I was mentioning, and how we can mitigate the waste output from all of our match days and events. And so, it's kind of twofold in that respect. A lot of the fun of it is I get to work with the operations team and the hospitality team, our internal marketing team, and then also our club partners to build their brand identities, but then also figure out how we can better ourselves as a club, which is pretty fulfilling.
And so and now everybody heard this whole story of everything. So how is it that you went from, you know, being where you were, loving soccer and whatnot, English, and then coming into a club now and working on zero sustainability? Like,
Yeah.
what was the tie-in? What like connected all the dots there for you?
Yeah, it's not very linear. It's funny hearing it from somebody else's perspective. Um, I think I think I've tried to always be just open to opportunity and to learn where I saw opportunity. And when I came into the club, one of my colleagues was running the sporting sustainability platform, and I just saw it and asked him about it and thought it was really cool and asked where I could help and plug in. And coincidentally, I ended up working with a partner called Hutamaki. They make consumer packaging. So for us in this context, they make all of our concessions items. So what we serve our pretzels in, what we serve our beer in, pizza, all of that. they are the producers of that packaging, and they make only compostable and recyclable packaging. So that's kind of how it relates to the zero waste initiatives. But I ended up inheriting that account from our sales team, and I'm trying to just understand what their mission is and what they wanted to do with our club and how we could support their goals. And it's slotted perfectly into the sustainability platform. So it was kind of a coupling of just my general interest in that, and then also the working capacity within my job where it just melded together.
No, that's cool. And just another reason I wanted to bring you on is because I know your background there with the with everything with trying to just make it better in the stadium, from the cups you use to the things in the bathroom, just all that to make it
Yeah.
a better environment. So talking to that point, I guess why do you think it, or what would you say to people as far as the sports world? Because I still think this is something that's being developed, something that's being understood, and I think they're doing a great part in your point at the higher levels. Obviously, the professional level, there's a lot of backing, there's a lot of money to help with those things. But what do you think about that is so important, and how can we kind of learn and help out other people in the sports industry to understand just zero waste more?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and it's one that we think about a lot. Um, when I look at Sporting Kansas City, we have an awesome, very loyal fan base. A lot of them aren't just coming for one game a season; they're coming for 17. They come out all the time. And one of the cool things is, yes, in terms of building the identity of our club and what we're capable of and the impact we're making on our environment, it is great to pursue zero waste and a more sustainable facility. But there's power and reach even beyond that. If people come into our stadium on a match day, they can be educated on what it means to be a steward for the environment in their own right. They can learn about recycling. They can learn about composting. They can start to think about what their waste impact is at home. And hopefully, it's bigger than just Sporting Kansas City. Hopefully, it is Kansas City as a whole. And when people come in and they learn those things, they'll take it back to their homes and they'll tell their friends and they'll implement recycling and composting at their workplaces. So there is, a lot of impact that can be driven by what we do as a club. And I see a lot of value there. And I think we are trying to do our part, at least in terms of how we can be a better club for the city and for those that engage with us.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. I think that's a really cool aspect. So now being there, doing this, do you feel like have you finally had that inclination, like this is where I want to be, like this is it. This is the buy-in?
Yeah, I think so. I
Yeah.
mean, I've really enjoyed it so far, and like I said, there's sort of a diamond-studded runway for our club and for the MLS with Messi having joined this past year.
Yep.
We just
Yep.
did a huge deal as a league with Apple to expand our broadcast to reach more people. We have the World Cup coming up in 2 years. It will be coming to Kansas City, so there's a lot of opportunity and growth potential. And for anybody that's interested in working for sports, I would definitely recommend considering soccer because there's a lot to learn and there's a lot to contribute to that's very exciting on the horizon.
So to piggyback on that point, somebody, I guess anyone that's out there that's trying to get into sports, work it within the industry, what's some advice you might give them to kind of steer them in the right direction?
Yeah, it's another good question. I think anytime you can demonstrate your passion, it doesn't matter where it came from. Mine is super eclectic, the route that I took to get here. Anytime you can demonstrate your passion and show your authentic love for something that you're interested in is always going to be a helpful thing and of service to what your mission is. I also think working in the sports world can be competitive. A lot of people are in love with sports. I mean, that's why it's so great, and a lot of people want to work in the industry. So sometimes the market can be saturated with applicants, but showing that authenticity is helpful. But then also approaching with some tenacity, I think, is important too. In some ways, it might take a lot of applications, which is okay. But if you really want something, then you kind of have to go after it. And I don't think sports is any different. So I would encourage anybody that is trying to keep trying, and ultimately when it works out, it's going to be even more rewarding.
Yeah. And I mean, to that point, think if you're someone that's bought into sports and you've played it enough, that same point, you don't give up the tenacity that's already built in you as
Yeah,
being an athlete, as somebody. Because whether you play in college or professional or whatnot, like you can still call yourself an athlete if you've had those experiences to play, because that really is what sets you up for life. I mean, to your point, going through all these questions, interviews, being relentless with it just as much as you were on the field to win. I mean, you're not going to win every game regardless of who you are. I don't care who you are. At the end of the day, you're still pursuing to get better yourself. Maybe it's in bettering your resume, taking some interviews, failing them, asking them, "Hey, how can I be better?" but still being open to trying and getting back out there. So I appreciate that.
absolutely.
Okay. All right, I got some questions here I want to throw your way, Mark. Kind of
Okay, are we recording
change it.
now? Is this when it starts?
This this is this is the big stuff now.
Okay, here we go.
Okay. All right. Let me see if I can have some stuff that'll fit you a little bit. Been looking through these.
Yeah.
Okay. Hmm. All right, here's a good one. Okay. In what ways has sportsmanship shaped your character?
Oh my gosh. Really bringing the hammer down. In what ways has sportsmanship shaped my character? Well, I think you just mentioned it a second ago. Sports are a great metaphor for life. Learning how to work on a team is important for any industry, whether you're interested in sports or not. And learning how to lose with grace is also something that's very important. And learning how to win with grace, too. I mean, I think it's a twofold sort of thing. So, um, yeah, man. I mean, I don't know. I think sportsmanship is probably even broader than the word suggests. It's just about how do you get along with other people and how do you create a team around you to make a positive impact on the world. And whether you're in soccer, baseball, you're playing for the Chiefs, whatever it is, uh, people look up to athletes. I don't care what level it is. I looked up to my brother when he was playing lacrosse, and people look up to Patrick Mahomes when he's winning Super Bowls. So the
Yeah.
way that you can best demonstrate your character through sports, people are going to listen. So I feel like sportsmanship is huge.
No, I think that's great answers. I appreciate it. And all right, let's see. You brought up teams, so let's throw this one at you. How has being part of a team influenced your personal development?
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, to just fall back on an anecdote again. I struggled to be on a team when I was young. I told that story about hugging my mom at the knees. I
Yeah,
mean, sometimes this is something that I work through just personally. Like sometimes I can kind of white knuckle grip my projects and want to have sole ownership over them.
yeah,
I think that's just something that's personal to me. Like I like having I like being able to work on something and just spend personal time with whatever the project is and pursue it with that tenacity on sort of like a one-to-one level. I know this sounds kind of abstract, but what
mhm,
I've realized is like things are always done better when they're in a team. So whether it's working on sustainability as a project or crafting an email to a client, I mean, either way, like those things are always done better in community, and having a team around you to challenge you or encourage you is really, really important. And if my mom hadn't kept me in soccer when I was young, I don't know if I would have realized how much strength I would have drawn from working alongside a team. I probably would have just
yeah.
quit soccer and piano and not developed so much as a person. So, I mean, that's all just to say I think it's really important. And whether you're somebody like me that can slip into having a pretty myopic vision about what you're pursuing, I think having courage to build a team around you to help you along the way, and you know that matters.
I like that answer. And I mean, to your point, I gotta ask you this though before I go too far off. So I know you
Yeah.
said you struggled to be with team, you like kind of white knuckle your projects. Would you consider yourself a natural like introvert or
I'm so glad you asked that. Yeah, I'm a self-diagnosed introvert through and through. No, there's no doubt about it. No two ways around it.
Okay, no worries, no worries. That's just I just want to make sure I tied it together,
Yeah,
to get it. But I think that's important because I think too often too in sports you think of like athletes that are really loud and rambunctious and out there. And even Courtney talked about it, like that's not her attitude either. And so being an introvert and then going and being a captain for her was something like totally crazy. That was stepping out. But to you too, I mean that's also the power of sports is it brings in people that can be introverts but then they find themselves in community or put in a position that they might not naturally enjoy. So
100%, completely. Yeah. Sometimes for introverts, I feel like it's just a matter of being seen, and the
yeah,
best way to be seen is by being part of a team that's willing to work with you. And you might surprise yourself to my fellow introverts out there what you're capable of when you surround yourself with the right people.
yep, yep. No, I totally agree. I've always it's funny every time I've taken those dumb tests from elementary up, I never actually get stuck as an introvert or an extrovert. I am an ambivert. So it depends on certain scenarios. I'm always in the middle of it. So there's
Yeah,
scenarios where I love being by myself, leave me alone, like I'm gonna work on my
yeah,
project. I don't want anyone in it. But then there's other times I very much want to be like social, very energetic, passionate about something. So no, that's good. I did have to ask though too, tying to team and being in your role, is there anything you've got to learn from being around players of the team or any stories or anything like that that you've got to be around players or learn from some of the players that have influenced you in your professional career?
yeah. That's a good question too. You know, I think an interesting thing that I've learned is that professional athletes are, in some ways, kind of like you and I. Obviously, they have achieved a remarkable amount in their lives. It's no secret that it's very hard to become a professional athlete, no matter what sport you're in. But
Yeah.
having been around some of my teammates, like they're guys like you and me, and sometimes I wish that professional athletes would be received with as much love as you would with your buddy over lunch or something like that. But
Yeah.
a lot of times I think we are expectant of a lot. Um, I kind of think of like, do you remember when LeBron James was giving that interview a few years ago? And I think it was during COVID, but somebody said that awful line that just reverberates sometimes now of like, shut up and dribble.
Oh
And
yeah,
you
yeah, yeah,
remember,
yeah. Yep,
yeah,
yep.
I think it's like, yes, athletes are amazing at this thing and we need to respect them for that, but they also can provide like something for people to look up to beyond just the sports. And that's not a
Hmm.
requirement of any athlete. I mean, Simone Biles has been an advocate for basically like giving space to athletes as well and treating them as human. Um, but they do have a platform to be listened to, and we should grant them that beyond just the skill that they have in their athleticism when they want to be heard. And that's something that I've learned from our team as well that I think is important to remember with athletes.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. Absolutely. And it's actually it's funny you brought up the LeBron thing because that's something that's always stuck in my mind too of how they said that because I think because we started this whole thing off talking about how powerful soccer can be and the platform it is and people buy into it, but then everybody wants to shut down the idea that sports can be used as a platform by the athlete, that they
Yeah,
can't use it to express themselves. But at the same time, I'm like, you have to flip that and say they've earned that. I mean, to your point, they've fought and they've gone through everything to be there. They're not just I mean, it's entertainment, but I mean, this is still a real person's life. Like, why not utilize that platform to do even more, to bring light to certain topics, to different scenarios? Because to your point, and what we've both said, sports is unifying. Sports is a place where we can all go to find that community and stuff. And these are real topics that are also important to the community, within sports to individuals. And so that's something that should be celebrated and looked at, not torn down and said, hey, just shut up and just do the sport and let me watch. Like, let me just enjoy it. But it's that person that you're watching, you're enjoying, still has actual feelings and same characteristics that you and I both have on a daily as well.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, they have some exceptional life experience. What it's taken for them to get there is remarkable. And so, if they want to build that space for themselves, we should listen. And it shouldn't
Hmm.
be a requirement as well for them to build that space. But if they are willing, we look up to them. So we should care what they have to say.
No, I completely agree with that. I actually think I put it at some point somewhere when writing this whole thing about Sojo. I think I put it somewhere. If you've ever been told to just shut up and dribble, I swear I put it somewhere. Like, then this is for you because we're all
Yeah.
trying to learn and grow from it. It really should be like, don't not shut up and dribble, but shut up and listen to these
Mhm.
experiences and things that people are saying. So I love that. All right. One last question for you. I'll do something different. I'll shoot you two questions, and you pick the one you want to answer. All right,
Okay, I
we'll
like
switch
this.
this up. We'll switch this up. All right. So first one is, what would you like fans and supporters to know? If you could tell them anything, what would you like them to know? Or what stereotypes would you like to debunk about athletes?
Oh, wow. Um, when you say what would I like fans and supporters to know, do you mean about sports in general, about the team, open
I
ended?
mean, open-ended. I'll let you kind of pick your pick your verbiage on that and how you want to take it.
Okay. If I answer one, can I ask you the other?
Sure, shoot, go for it.
Okay, I'll pick the one of what would I like fans to know.
Okay.
Um, I got to think of how I want to take it though. It could be about Sporting Kansas City. It could be about soccer in general, the World Cup. Um, hmm. I think I want fans to know that soccer is a place for all. It's a place where you can be accepted, whether you're an athlete or a fan. It's a place where you are welcomed, no matter what you look like or who you are or how you've been labeled. It's a place to enjoy that community in a safe and fun way. And whether you're a fan or you're not a fan yet, come be a fan and continue to be a fan because we want you and we accept you and it's a beautiful game and it's going to keep growing and so pick a team, come join, come to a sporting match, we'd love to have you and just come and enjoy it because it's a place for all. So that's what I would say to any fan, and then I'm going to ask you the stereotype that you would like to debunk.
So, I mean, this is I've thought about this a ton. So debunking stereotypes on athletes. I think the biggest thing, being a coach, helping out at the collegiate level, doing my masters, like seeing so much behind the scenes. I think the dumb idea that athletes aren't smart is just
Hmm.
absolutely incredibly naive to even think that. And I mean, if you truly understand what a lot of these athletes are doing on the field and off the field and then in the classroom, you'd be amazed. But that's I think the average fan doesn't see that. Obviously, they're just focused on what's produced on the field, on the court, on the pitch, whatnot. But I've seen guys that are an offensive lineman that are going and taking and biomechanical engineering classes that are exceptionally hard and being the leading student and tutoring other students in that.
Yeah.
And I mean, seeing a quarterback talk about Patrick Mahomes and different things, the processing skills to see everything on a field and to know you're different, who you have to throw the ball to, where you need to get it, everything like that is incredible. I mean, the amount of information that athletes are required to have in their brain at any given moment, the amount of training and knowing how to utilize all of that properly is incredible. It's just so the whole back end of sports of like athletes are just dumb jocks should be completely debunked because it's not the case. And if you want to be like, well, I knew so and so, sure. I mean, anyone can know so and so that might not be the star student and in anything. And so, I mean, a lot of people could probably say back in high school they weren't the star student. So why do you think that athletes are any different? Because if anything, and you know this to a point too, I mean, you're playing some soccer in college, but to balance the academic life and load of everything that you're doing and then go to your practices and then travel around to games, perform at a high level, rehab, do all that and still pull the grades that you're doing to be high honors, different things in college and whatnot, even high school, teams traveling all over the place. Like that takes a lot of work. That takes a lot of dedication, but those are organized skills that these athletes all have. That's not just doing that, but knowing how to plan it all in. So that's why athletes tie in so well in the professional world is they've learned all these skills already. So that's
Yeah, man.
that's that's where I debunk it.
I love that. I'm on the same page as you are. I think it's so true. And like you just said, all the skills that it takes for somebody to become a successful athlete are the same skills that make somebody a great salesperson or a great teacher or a great mechanic. I mean, they're all shared skills and they're just demonstrated in different ways. Some of the best advice I ever received is that you can't judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree. And so just because you see somebody as one thing, doesn't mean they're not capable of something else. And people are so multidimensional. We just have to build the space, I think, for athletes to be seen on a higher level than the singular thing that they've already achieved.
Yep. No, completely agree. So, I mean, that's kind of your journey, Mark, but I asked some questions. I want to throw it back to you for any like personal shout outs, anything you're doing special over there at Kansas City, any charities, anything. This is your moment. Rise and
Wow.
shine.
Well, thank you, man. That's really generous. Let me give a shout out to the Nature Conservancy. That might feel somewhat tangent, but we do a lot of work with them on our sustainability platform, and they're a great environmental organization that's doing a lot of work in conserving our land and our water and
Very cool.
working to better the environments that we live in, not only in Missouri but across the U.S. They're a fantastic group. There's volunteer opportunities with them if anybody's looking to get involved with the environment. And you can also donate to their causes as well. They have a great website that outlines what they're doing in each state and their goals up to 2030. So I got to give them a shout out. They've helped us a lot, and I love what they do.
Very cool. Very cool. Sweet. I'll have to grab the website from you and I can put it down below. So if anyone's
Yeah,
interested, go check that out. Um, I love the shout out. I love it. So thank you. Well, that wraps it up for this episode, guys. I really appreciate everybody that tuned in, listened to this, had a great conversation with Mark, went all over the place with it, which I love, because I don't think anyone's path is linear. So to see the curves and every different way that we go, I think is unique, and it just builds to the power of your own journey that sports puts you on and kind of where you can find yourself. So appreciate you all. Appreciate you, Mark, a lot. And don't forget, live Sojo.
thanks, Cooper.
Thanks.